tonight. The time just past 9 o'clock in the morning in sim. The conditions overcast, but should be clear for this race tonight. Myself, Ian Leary, and Ron Miles will be taking you through the action with Rodrigo Augustin is now behind the cameras. It's good to be here, Ron, for some more radical racing here on a Friday night. Starting with the Nürburgring Grand-Prix-Strecke, a traditional Grand Prix racing track that these cars should suit rather well and could produce us with some good racing as well.
Well, when you put these SR10s on all sorts of racetracks, you're bound to get some good action, have some experience covering this series for quite a long time on iRacing. You're going to see a whole lot of incredible, radical SR10 racing action here from the official series. We are covering the top split here, folks, and we've got fantastic season up ahead. Of course, the Nürburgring to kick it off tonight, but looking through Road America, CTMP, Suzuka, Mugello, Road Atlanta, Phillip Island, Oldham Park, Montreal, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, VIR, Mount Panorama, and Interlagos to bring this season to a close. We have got a brilliant schedule to look forward to, but I gotta say, of all the tracks to start off on, we're probably starting on one of the most technical. This is gonna be a tough test for these drivers.
Yeah, absolutely, especially compared to some of those that are coming up in the next few days. In the last few days, we've seen already some racing, obviously, before tonight's race. So even though we are in week one, we've already got some standings. Sully Rattland currently leading the way ahead of Lasse Sorensen by just 8 points. George Gonzaga is third, just 3 points ahead of Raul Guardia. Then Nikita Abramov is in fifth. Bruno Vittorino next ahead of Julian Trenkel. Then Anthony Kernan, Marcus Rocha, and Eric Benson rounding out the top 10. We'll have updates on the points every week here as we go racing on a Friday night, although it's going to be very difficult for us to keep across who's going to be where in the points, to be honest with you, as we go forward with these races. Just over a minute and a half remaining in qualifying in one of the more important sessions of the season, and it looks like most drivers have already done their lap times. Andre Castro currently on the pole by just under 2 tenths of a second. There are some drivers, though, still may be able to improve.
Yeah, trying to get these fast lap times right under the wire. It's super important to try and get a good time. Obviously, track position, huge around a racetrack like this, especially in cars like these. These drivers only have 2 laps to try and get the job done. Solo qualifying, which is super important in these SR10s as well, trying to get those tires lit up. It's important to have some hot tires because especially at the start of this race, standing starts in order for this series as well. Cold tires and SR10 don't go together well. That is not a match made in heaven. These drivers looking to get these tires cooked up as quickly as they can and set the best times that they can. Andre Castro, very fast driver with some past experience in this series. Red Gullickson, the reigning official champion here from the Radical Esports Cup on iRacing. We got some very fast drivers peppered all throughout this grid. Some drivers that you also see in the Radical European and Americas Championships that you can catch on RaceSpotTV sporadically on Sundays throughout this year. We have got some hard-hitting competitors all throughout this grid. I think they're going to treat us to some good racing action, doubly so considering how close it is currently.
Yeah, we will be live for the next installment, by the way, of the European Series on Sunday. So I hope that you can join us for that. Sebastian Lipp crosses the line, weaving himself across the line and struggling for whatever reason early on today. Wanyo Churel out of the final corner now as well in the number 19 car. These drivers have not selected their number this time around. It is just based on their iRating. It should give you a bit of an idea as to who might find themselves up towards the front by the end of the day out of the 22 drivers that are in this race. Let's go through them now in our starting grid ahead of the 14-lap race. It's Andre Castro on the pole ahead of Havard Gullickson alongside Kim-Andre Björklund, and Ryan Odo will share row 2 with Lasse Sorensen and James Barry on row 3. This is already half a second off pole, by the way. 7th place has gone to Mark Swain with Andreas Friedrich next. Then it's Rudolf Nagel and Dennis Kurikopoulos in 10th. George Gonzaga and Luke Crowley share row 6. Mika Henrik Hulkkonen is in 13th, but Sebastian Lipp surprisingly down in 14th. Wano Torel is in 15th, ahead of Daniel Case, with Robert Woodward and Menno de Graaf sharing row 9. Daniel Salmon and Kieran Fishlock are next. That's quite fitting, isn't it? Chris Vetz and then Gabriel Berger round out the field. 22 drivers, as I say, on the grid for this one. They're all just getting themselves gridded up now and ready for that run down towards turn 1, Ron, which you already said to me is a very difficult one indeed.
Yep, got some experience driving around this car earlier on this afternoon. I kind of made a joke saying, you got to talk to the car and say, hey, can I get an apex? And the car just responds by saying the best I can do is about 50 feet wide. On lap 1, heading down into turn number 1, in a car like this where trying to get the braking right is super important. And there's probably about a 5% window between pulling up in time and overshooting it. Super tough. That is going to be the most important corner of this race.
The drivers are ready, we're ready, and a new season of the iRacing Radical E-Cup is set to get underway here from the Nürburgring. Lights are on, and we go green for the iRacing Radical E-Cup. 3 wide already in the background as they cross the line for the first time, getting off from that standing start and in towards the difficult turn number 1. 3 wide briefly for first, and also for fourth, but they all get through cleanly. All 22 of them, not without lockups, but they all get through, point in the right direction. No, not through turn 2 though. A big slide and a big spin, I'm afraid, for Kim-Andre Björklund out of the second corner.
And a veteran of the Radical Esports Cup making a big mistake early. That was coming out of turn number 2. Super easy to spin up the rear tires on corner exits, especially on lap 1 with these ice cold tires. It's super tough trying to handle this racetrack in these race cars with ice cold tires. And we just saw it proved a couple of moments ago at the front of the field. Still clean with Andre Castro leading it. But I think Luke Crowley may have had a moment as well. He's dropping down the running order too.
Yeah, he's at least lost 1 place to Mika-Henrik Hulken, and this is what happened to Björklund. Doesn't look like there was any contact involved. Just seemed to drop it on the power there through turn 2. And, well, he was able to prevent it from going all the way around, but he did lose a whole load of places even so. This is for 3rd place between Lasse Sorensen and Ryan Odo at the moment. Sorensen crawling all over the back of number 12 here for 3rd place. Sorensen, as we've just seen in those standings, currently 2nd with Sully Rattanen not here. It's a good chance to get some good points with some of those closest rivals not here. You will have noticed, of course, we are using the faster of the chicanes, by the way, at the end of this straight. And meanwhile, in the background, on the run up towards that chicane, Sebastian Lipp is making some progress as well. I can't decide whether it helps or hinders overtaking, really. It does make the final corner a bit more of an overtaking chance, but the fast chicane does of course prevent those moves going into those final couple of corners.
As we can see some nearly 4 wide action heading off through turn number 3. It doesn't end well for Daniel Salmon in the 22 car. He loops it, heading through. That was some near 4 wide action, of course, ending in tears. And here's a moment involving Chris Wetz in the number 17 car, heading his way. And contact being made. I believe that was Gabriel Berger that gave him a tap, heading through the braking zone, and that's going to spear that number 17 car straight into the barrier.
That was pretty big contact. He drops all the way down to 22nd, but he didn't have to pit at least, so he's still in the race. Andre Castro still leads from Havard Gulliksen in 2nd, and the 2 of them, I've got to say, do look like the class of the field right now. Ryan Odo is staying with them reasonably well for now. Lasse Sorensen not too far away either, but we are only on lap 2, and in the background it is not James Barry, excuse me. There's 2 running very close to one another though, down the straight on the way towards the hairpin there. Might have been Frederick on the back of Mark Swan there for 6th place, but not sure. There certainly wasn't any move made. As we go aboard with Gulliksen here, and we'll now try and work out how you're going to make a move around this circuit, because it is difficult in places to get anything done.
Yeah, in these SR10s, you usually see overtakes done with the help of the slipstream. If I had to name the top 3 cars on iRacing, road course cars that is, in terms of their slipstream and drafting abilities, I'd probably say the Formula V, the Spec Racer Ford, and this car, the Radical SR10. They have an almighty drift. It's like someone put a shop vac on the back of these race cars and clicked it on. Super strong draft, but around a racetrack like this, where you got that long flat ab blast on the back end of the circuit, but it's heading into a fast chicane where you can't really get a move done. That section really tricky in these SR10s. It's super important to keep that front splitter close enough to the ground, because if you lose that downforce, you're going to be in for a world of troubles. I think we got some drivers fanning out a little bit farther in the back. Yeah, that's for 5th place. Mark Swan got past James Barry into the final few corners of the last lap. He's trying to take that place back again in towards turn 1. Outside line gives him the inside at 2. If he can stay there, and he does just have his nose alongside. He's got a queue behind him. Andreas Friedrich is next, and James Barry has to cede the position to number 10. So Mark Swan's up a place, and James Barry back down to 6th ahead of Friedrich. Then it's Dennis Kirikopoulos, and then it's Rudolf Knight as well.
Barry, Friedrich and Kirikopoulos, of course, in the same livery, queuing up behind one another, trying to repass Mark Swan to get back into the top 5 again.
Now, a lot of the drivers that you see in the camera shot right now, all part of the same team. James Barry, Andreas Friedrich, and Dennis Kyriakopoulos, all part of that insert name e-racing team. They are fast in these SR10s. I've been covering the likes of James Barry, Andreas Friedrich, and Dennis Kyriakopoulos in this series for quite some time. They are formidable contenders in these SR10s. James Barry, a 2-time champion with the Radical Esports Cup, won the championship in Season 3 and Season 4 of 2024. So he's a very fast driver. Do not get me wrong, that Brit behind the wheel of that number 2 car certainly got to be a driver we have to keep tabs on all throughout this season, but he's currently got a bit of a test on his hands with Mark Swan, who I gotta say, no offense to him, he's kind of acting as a rolling roadblock as it's allowed the front 4 of Castro, Gullikson, Odo, and Lasse Sorensen to break away. It's now about 2.5 seconds between Sorensen and Swan.
Yeah, I mean, in Swan's defence, it was started by James Barry, in fairness, and then when the battle started, neither of them could really get on terms with the front 4, which is expected somewhat. Here comes Gullikson in towards turn 1, has a look, but breaks too early this time. Has an almost secondary look down the inside, but doesn't fire through. And Andre Castro holds the lead. That is James Barry dropping down the order, though. And there looks like there's been an incident, I'm afraid, in that battle for 5th place. Mark Swan all of a sudden is clear, and you just fear maybe if there was contact between the teammates. Andreas Friedrich has also lost a place, so gained one from Barry, lost one immediately with Dennis Kyriakopoulos as well. So it looks like there has been contact maybe between the teammates.
I think that right there was a commentator's jinx that struck James Barry right there. The falling anvil coming to crash down on his head. Let's have a look at hang down into turn number 1. Yes, it was contact with the teammates. Oh, that is going to sting. Andreas Friedrich and James Barry coming to blows. Barry spun around in possibly the worst spot to around this racetrack, trying to climb up the hill and get it turned around. There is no good way to get spun back around in the right direction heading through turn number 1 around this track. There's just no spot at all in which that can be done smooth, cleanly, and in a way that looks cool.
It's very difficult. The idea, of course, is to stay pointing the right way the whole time, but that is easier said than done, as we all know. There's the gap between 4th and 5th, by the way. This is very much a front 4 fighting for the win here, but how are they going to go about this? How is Gullikson going to try and get past Andre Castro? Does Ryan Odo do anything from 3rd place? And maybe he's going to be forced into it now, because that was a mistake through the final chicane from Harvard Gullikson, who's now got that bit of a gap in front of him. He could use that to accelerate and slingshot into. He could fall back into this black hole, and Ryan Odo could swallow up his position here in towards turn 1. He's very close again. Does he play the game, or does he try and go through? He's going to stay behind, but he did at least force Gullikson to take a defensive shape in towards turn 1.
Yeah, I gotta wonder what strategy Ryan Odos are going to attempt to try and use in this race, as I think there may have been more drama involving the insert name e-racing team car of Andreas Friedrich. He's now dropped down, currently finds himself in 9th. I think he just got a move done on Mika Holkinen, but he dropped down the running order quite badly, was running in, I believe, 6th or 7th before he had that off-track moment. Now finds himself in a small little hornet's nest, just barely inside of the top 10. There you can see multiple of those insert name e-racing team cars. You could see in the midst of all that Andreas Friedrich, George Gonzaga also involved in all of that as well. Smoke getting kicked up in the air as these drivers attempt to tackle this racetrack, which is super tough in these cars. In my time covering the Radical Esports Cup, which goes back now to 10 seasons here on the iRacing platform, we've never used this track, strangely enough. So these drivers have a bit of a learning curve on their hands throughout this week, trying to get a grips with this track, which is super unforgiving, and a car that's super unforgiving as well.
Yeah, the Nordschleife is such a fixture in both the iRacing calendars just generally, but also for this calendar in specifics, that the Grand Prix circuit is very much forgotten about. A forgotten younger brother, if you will. But it is not forgotten this season.
Felt that.
Yeah. I'm older, so it's fine. Yeah, it's not on the calendar in its Nordschleife form this time round, but it is in the Grand-Prix-Strecke, and I, for one, am quite pleased about that. Out the final corner, here comes Lasse Sorensen. He's closest for third place now, and Ryan Odo is going to be under pressure. Now, again, does Sorensen play the game, or does he go for the move? It's like watching a replay of what Odo did to Gullikson last time round, only it's Sorensen doing it to Odo this time. And that they again stay single file. Fast approaching halfway here.
Yeah, quickly approaching that halfway mark in this official race. These races can go by in the blink of an eye. As someone who's commentated them for quite some time and driven in some of them as well, I can assure you that these races feel like they just disappear from you. As soon as you're like, oh yeah, I'm finally in the groove, then you see that checkered flag coming out. But I gotta wonder how things are gonna shake out at the front of this field. Leading it currently is still Andre Castro, the driver of the #1 car. He is incredibly fast in these Radical SR10s. He's also a real-life driver as well, have some experience running in the NASCAR Euro Series. I believe he has some experience running around this track potentially in real life as well. He's super fast in these SR10s. I've seen him win his fair share of official races. He's a quick driver, but he needs to keep those mistakes down to a minimum. I think he ran a little bit wide heading through the hairpin a couple of moments ago. That's allowed that gap to himself and Harvard Gullikson to drop like a rock. It's now a quarter of a second between those drivers heading down into turn 12.
Yeah, it's really close. You can see the dipping sun, by the way. It looks like a dipping sun. It's actually rising. It's just it's 20 past 9 in the morning in Sim when we started. So sun is still rising. It's 4th of April. Sorry, 1st of April. That's me watching the American dates there. 1st of April in Sim. Meanwhile, Castro defending from Gullikson in towards that fast chicane. Now, does Gullikson get an exit? Not really. So he was getting Castro all offline into the chicane. He couldn't use the exit though. And now he might be punished for that with Ryan Odo because he's as close as ever from third place. Down the straight, in towards turn 1, the battle for the lead, into battle again. And Gullikson has to pull it over to defend. Odo this time does get alongside. He does fancy the place. And with the inside at turn 2 and 3, might get it as well. Ryan Odo up past, have been able to do it. And now Ryan Odo feels it's his turn to give this race lead challenge a bit of a go.
Now we've got two Americans at the front of this field. Castro and Odo very fast in these SR10s. Ryan Odo has some good experience running around the Nürburgring just on the Nordschleife. He won the season opening race for the Radical Americas Championship a couple of weeks ago here on RaceSpotTV. He's a quick driver in these SR10s. He is a young guy as well. The driver of the #12 looking to flex his muscles and impress. Got a move done to slip in front of Harvard Gullikson. Now it's the two teammates, the two IGL Coatings cars separated by practically nothing for third and fourth. I wonder if they're going to try and work together or whether Lasse Sorensen's going to jump in front of his reigning official series teammate and say, hey, look, you had your shot to try and grab the lead. I haven't. Let me go in front so I can try and give Andre Castro a bit of a headache. Let's see how those two teammates are going to try and either cooperate or not cooperate towards the end of this race.
Now let's see, because there's still another half of this race to go. A shout out to JR Gregory, by the way, who predicted that Ryan Odo was going to do something very soon, and not long after he posted that message, Ryan Odo did indeed get up into second place. So well done on reading the future there on that one. Up in towards the final corner again, and meanwhile, the bottom of your screen, that's the penultimate corner coming up. Hulkinen versus Lip. Sebastian Lip recovering some of those places that he really should have had through qualifying. He's now into 9th place. That was Turrell having a bit of a look as well, and Hulkinen couldn't get it done. But Sebastian Lip's on the move, and that's arguably where he should have been to start with. Meanwhile, Ryan Odo and Andre Castro for the lead, side by side. Odo looks like he gave it a go at turn 1, but broke too late, and Castro gets back through again, restores his lead.
I gotta say, JR's prediction in the YouTube chat over on the RaceSpotTV stream, he was, I mean, a very good reason why he knows what he's talking about. He commentated this series with me for many, many moons. He knows the competitor that Ryan Odo is. He's driven against him as well in the Radical Americas Championship. Odo is fast. He is very quick, and he can get the job done as well. And he nearly got the job done on Castro. You can see how deep he went into turn #1. Just missed out a little bit through the corner. Could not turn in time. He also had Castro still on the inside line, but Odo clearly having the guts to go that deep into the braking zone at turn #1. And that's a rather impressive feat in these SR10s. I mentioned this earlier on. The Radical SR10s have probably about a 5% window in terms of getting on the brakes between not being able to stop in time or locking up both of those front tires and just skidding past any sort of apex you could imagine. It's a really fine line that you have to run when it comes to heading into the braking zones in these SR10s. Odo, you can tell that he's comfortable in these race cars. In fact, he was able to go for the lunge like that.
On the bottom of your screen, Andreas Frederick just got past Mark Swan. He's recovering some of the places that he lost earlier as well. There's plenty of drivers like that who are recovering from problems earlier. Kieran Fishlock, unfortunately, is out the race, or at least in pit lane now, which is a shame for him. You will have seen him jumping about on the timing screen. It looked like a disconnect to me, but we will find out if there was anything else to show you from that. I don't think there is, though, to be honest. In towards turn number 1 for the leaders again. Ryan Odo's giving this a go now after a tentative first half of the race. He's growing into this one, and he's forced an error from Andre Castro, who just locked up the brakes there. And Odo shuts the door in his face. He pulls across him in towards turn 2, and he's got the lead now. Ryan Odo leads on lap 9 at the Nürburgring.
That was just about as good of a move as you could have gotten done from Ryan Odo. He seized the opportunity when Castro tripped up a little bit through turn number 1. We've talked about the challenge in these SR10s, trying to get it done through there. Turn 1 around the Nürburgring Grand Prix layout is so tricky, at least for me as a commentator, albeit a very good reason why I'm behind a microphone instead behind the wheel. But Odo seizing that opportunity after that mistake from Castro. Castro may try and do the same here on Odo. Odo running a little bit wide coming out turn number 7. Maybe going to use a bumper heading off through the hairpin.
That was close, if it wasn't contact. Gullikson was a bit all over the place as well at the Dunlop hairpin, and they get away with it. Meanwhile, it's all going on in pit lane. Hulken and Turrell have both come in, and somebody else is there as... Oh, excuse me, that's Fishlock, of course, who's still there from before. That's Hulken coming out of the pit lane after about 50 seconds there. Turrell has been in there for over a minute. We'll see if there's any more to that story. Dust picked up everywhere, flicked up into the air, and Castro's got a decent run. They're all pushing really hard now. Final 5 laps coming up here, and Castro's going to go for them over the final chicane. Oh, that was close. That is close in towards the fast chicane. You don't really see side-by-side through there too often. And Castro very nearly just created that there on the inside line. Here comes Gullikson as well. He's just under half a second off the lead here, and he's in 3rd place, for goodness sake. He's got the double slipstream in towards turn 1. He's got a big chance to fire down the inside. Surely somebody's going to have a go here. Castro's very close. He's going to hit Odo. Oh, so close. He locks up just to avoid the back end of the number 12 car, and they stay as they are through turn 1.
Holy cow, I had such a bad feeling about that heading down into turn number 1. I thought there was going to be a glorified round of bowling in that section, but they all got through clean. Ryan Odo holding on to the race lead virtually by the skin of his teeth. Andre Castro, though, with the move, the attempted move at least, heading down into the fast chicane. That is a 1-lane corner. That is 1 lane at best, especially in these SR10s at speed with cars that, if we're being honest, tend a bit more towards understeer. Heading off through a section like that and trying to go side by side, does Andre Castro not fear death? That was an insane move from the driver of the number 1 car. If he made it work, that would have been a Christmas miracle in April, but the fact he even decided that, you know what, I'm gonna at least try this, shows you that Andre Castro has that mindset. He wants to go for the win. He wants to get season 2 of 2025 kicked off with a bang for these Friday official broadcasted races. And Castro, I don't think he's done. I don't think he has... I think he has far more tricks up his sleeve. Let's see what Castro is going to do.
And that was at the turn 12. That was 13, the kink, and now they're side by side into the fast chicane. Odo on the inside, Castro on the outside, and they just about give each other room. Here comes Gullikson. He's going to go for both of them, is he? In towards the final turn. Sorensen. He goes straight to the side of Odo, very nearly spins himself out. He goes back to 4th, and he's now way off the back end of this pack. Odo flashes his lights. He looks to Gullikson. What's he going to do? Outside line. Here comes Odo. Does he come through the middle, maybe? Gullikson's on the outside, really late braking in towards turn 1. Really wide as well. Castro might be able to slam him out there, but he can't. Gullikson's still there. He's still holding the inside. Castro with the run around the outside has got the lead. Now he shuts the door. Now he's got his lead back again on lap 11. And Gullikson promotes himself to 2nd as well. It's Ryan Odo who loses out on lap 11.
Oh, and Odo, I can imagine, is not very happy with the series of events that have transpired over the past minute and a half. Just tried to get a move done on him as contact being made. That's involving Gabriel Berger heading off through turn at number 3. Not sure who the car was on the inside line that he came to blows with. Getting back to the point that I was going to raise about Ryan Odo. He nearly just tried to go for a move heading off into turn number 6. I think Odo's shaken up a little bit. He's usually calm, cool, and collected, but after getting involved in that hornet's nest and getting poked so many times with a 10-foot pole that I think he's grown a dent, I don't think Odo's very happy. He's got to be a man on a mission for the final few laps of this race.
He is, yeah. This is going to be a very, very exciting final few laps. Now, I said earlier that that's what happened to Kieran Fishlock, who was having a terrible time jumping up and down in pit lane for some reason on the timing screen. That's why he ended up there in the first place. Broke far too late, took somebody with him as well, unfortunately, at turn 1. So that was how Kieran Fishlock got out of the running, effectively, for this race. Here is the fast chicane again, and the battle continuing between Castro, Gullickson, Odo and Sorensen, who's back again now in the 4th place. Now, there might well be a little bit of a move on the way towards turn number 1. I think he's a bit too far away this time, but there are only 3 laps to go. Running out of chances to get this race lead. And they will be single file this time. For 5th place, Andreas Friedrich is back again. Oh, and there's a lap car on the apex as well. Look at that at the bottom of your screen. That's Mark Swan trying to hold on from Dennis Kirakopoulos, who's breaking late on the outside. He's locking up. He's way too wide. And Mark Swan holds on to 6th.
Kirakopoulos, a veteran in these SR10s, clearly overcooking it, heading down into turn number 1. Shows you how tricky it is, the braking in these SR10s, trying to find that razor's edge and ride it for as long as you can. Not getting it done quite so well there, but I feel like this race has kind of reset from how it was a matter of about, we'll say about 8 laps to go at this point. You still got Andre Castro, Harvard Gullickson, Ryan Odo, and Lasse Sorensen running P1, P2, P3, and P4. But I think these drivers know a little bit more about how they're going to be raced. Andre Castro, with the move that he did, hang down into the fast chicane a couple of laps ago, you can clearly tell that the driver of the number 1 car is going to be a man on a mission. Harvard Gullickson, though, is a man in the gravel heading through the Schumacher S. That's going to give Odo the shot, heading down into turn number 11 on the inside. Clobber in the curb. That is not an SR10's best friend, and he loses out. Trying to get that move done just was not close enough.
And is that the race-winning ticket now for Andre Castro? Not sure why Ryan Odo is flashing his lights, if he's saying, don't worry about me and get on with this, or let me through so we can get on with it as a group. That is Gullickson lifting off so that the other 2 can go through. So we know what they've decided, but with 2 laps to go, surely that gap to Castro now is just far too big.
Yeah, that is a gap that is just about insurmountable unless Castro makes a mistake. You can never rule that out in these SR10s. We've seen veteran drivers in this race thus far make gut-wrenching mistakes, but we still got side-by-side racing hang down the start-finish straightaway into turn number 1. Nearly 3 wide. Lasse Sorensen getting that move done on Odo. Odo fighting back, coming out of turn number 1 through 2 right now. Sweeping around the outside. Ryan Odo in the 12 car with the run on the high side. Let's see, into 3. Look at Harvard Gullickson in the 4 car. He's now running in P4. He's getting a fantastic view of that side-by-side racing. Odo wheeling it in that 12 machine to get that move done. That was great.
Nicely done. And he's up to 2nd now on the penultimate lap. Oh, and look at that, down the inside from Sorensen nearly. Oh, he nearly had a look there through the right hand at the forward curve, turn 7. That was close. And there's a lap car in here as well, by the way. That is Tourelle, Wanho Tourelle in 21st. After 5 minutes in the pit lane, back out again. Kieran Fishlock is back out again after that stop as well, by the way, in 20th place. The only retirement seems to be Chris Wetz, who's still on pit lane. Last lap pending here, and the battle is no closer to being resolved between these 3 for 2nd place.
Yep, they're still side by side. This time hang down into turn number 11. Oh, contact being made into 12. 3 cars getting taken out.
They're all gone because Sorensen's got no rear end. Odo has been spun into the gravel, and Gullickson's lost his front end. Here comes Friedrich. Andre Friedrich, 4th. He's coming through. Who's he brought with him as well? Mark Swan's not that far away. Neither is Kirakopoulos or Rudolf Nagel, who's been very quiet in this race, but he could get a top 5 finish in a moment. Sorensen is running around very gingerly indeed. He's got 1 lap to hold on to a damaged car for a podium place.
And all started with contact between Odo and Sorensen coming out of turn number 11 in that small little flat out blitz between 11 and 12. Andre Castro seeing all that chaos in his rearview mirror, on track to kick this season off with a win. Now 4.7 seconds between himself and Sorensen, so he is running comfortably. Harvard Gullickson, the unfortunate innocent bystander in all of that, had nowhere to go as his teammate and his competitor of Odo came to blows heading down into turn number 12. You can see he's running the air conditioning mod in the SR10. That's not going to work well with straight line speed, so he now finds himself in 6th, probably going to drop down behind the likes of Danis Kyriakopoulos and Rudolf Nagel as well. That is not going to be a good final lap for Harvard Gullickson. That contact being made, I'd have to take a look at another angle of that, but I think last day Sorensen was a bit too opportunistic trying to race Odo hard. He gave him the boot scoon boogie coming out of turn number 11 and got Odo sideways, and he was still squirrely when the initial contact was made that sent Odo around. Sorensen getting caught up in that, and unfortunate for Harvard Gullickson, the reigning Radical Esports Cup champion, absolutely nowhere to go. But in all that, Andre Castro now 7 seconds in the race lead, gonna get this season kicked off in the best way imaginable.
This is how it happened. It did look like Sorensen was a bit just careless and hitting Ryan Odo there. As you mentioned, Gullickson had nowhere to go. And Odo was a bit of an innocent bystander in that one. According to the graphic we got a couple of moments ago, by the way, Sorensen's got a black flag, I can only presume, for hitting the incident limit. So we'll see if that's true or not and where he ends up in the race results. Meanwhile, Andre Castro comes through the final corner to win here at the Nürburgring. The opening round of the Radical E-Cup on iRacing has gone to Andre Castro, who in the end has taken a lights to flag victory, but in the middle of the race it was a lot more complicated. Ryan Odo hangs on to second, only just ahead of Friedrich, because we did indeed see that penalty for Sorensen, who's going to drop down at the end of the day. That means Mark Swan and Danis Kyriakopoulos are going to be promoted to the podium, to the top 5 places at the end of that race.
And I gotta say, if I'm being completely and brutally honest, I feel like that's a little bit of cosmic debt being paid to Lasse Sorensen as a result of that contact. Ryan Odo, a very fast driver, a very calm and patient and understanding driver as well. I have seen him get wrecked out of race wins in league races in the past, and he has handled himself rather well. Handling himself well again in this situation, but understandably rather upset. I mean, yeah. I'm gonna have to take a look at another angle of that potentially, but that was just messy heading off through 11 and 12. But for Andre Castro, it was perfectly clean and just about as flawless of an opening race for the season as he could have managed.
And the 10 seconds probably flatters him a little bit in the race results, but he does take the victory ahead of Ryan Odo. Andreas Friedrich on the podium as well, Mark Swan up to 4th. Lasse Sorensen still on our results as 5th place. I was expecting him to drop down, actually, but maybe he will be a top 5 at the end of the day anyway. Danis Kyriakopoulos is just in behind him with Rudolf Nagel and Harvard Gullickson in that group as well. Sebastian Lipp made up places throughout the day to get to 9th of George Gonzaga, who rounded out the top 10. Luke Crowley was next ahead of Kim-Andre Björklund, with James Barry, relatively early instant for him, dropping to 13th uncharacteristically. Manu de Graaf making up some good places there in that one as well. He's 14th ahead of Daniel Case, with Gabriel Berger, Robert Woodward and Daniel Salmon, the last drivers, within a minute of the win. Mika Henrik Hulkonen actually seemed to get on the lead lap at the end, by the looks of that. Not sure what that's all about. Kieran Fissock finished 20th ahead of Juanjo Turrell and Chris Retz to round out the field. Unfortunately, they finished quite a few laps down at the end of that race. We'll wait a couple of moments for these drivers to come and have a chat with us, because we'd love to hear their thoughts after that one. It was a very chaotic race indeed, but what a great battle. Sometimes the Nürburgring is criticised for being difficult to overtake on. Nobody told the front 4 drivers in that race that it's difficult to overtake on. That was 14 laps, pretty much breathless action. Certainly the second half of the race was.
You know, Ewan, as a commentator who's covered Radical SR10 action on the iRacing platform for literally as long as I have been doing this stuff, an SR10 race was the first broadcast I ever did, I wasn't expecting these drivers to go for the moves that they did. Doubly so, the move from Andre Castro, which went on to be the move for the race win, heading down into that fast chicane right towards the end of the lap. That was incredible stuff from these drivers. We have an awesome season to look forward to. Looking forward to Road America in 1 week's time. That's going to be a rather awesome track, but it shows you that these SR10s, some of the most competitive cars on the iRacing platform. You want to think about it with these 40 EcoBoost powered SR10s that some people have kind of thrown by the wayside on the iRacing platform. They put on some of the best racing that you can see on iRacing, point blank period. I'm pretty sure that barn burner of a race just about proved it.
Yeah, and it's going to continue. Just before we sign off, one more word from you, Ron, about what we're going to have next week, because we will be back again for Road America. Here it is, live from 9 GMT. Clocks are changing soon in Europe, so just be everybody get on your toes for that. But it's 28th of March, 9 p.m. at GMT, same time, same place. Ron, we'll be back, and we've both seen enough racing at Road America to know that these cars deliver some absolute treats at that venue.
Yeah, my thoughts heading into that race at Road America: give me a D, give me an R, give me an A, give me an F, give me a T. The draft is going to be super important for that race. I mean, the track is basically built up of long straightaways and heavy braking zones. What's not to love in these cars where you give them some good braking zones and some heavily long straightaways, you're going to find yourself having a barn burner of a race. So a lot of racing action to look forward to here from the Radical Esports Cup, Road America. That's going to be fantastic.
It certainly is, and if you want even more radical racing, then stay with us on RaceSpotTV, because on Sunday night at 8 p.m. UK time, we'll be live with the European Championship of the Radical Sim Racing Championship, so make sure you join us for that. Myself and J.R. Gregory will be on hand for that one on Sunday, so we look forward to your company then. For now, though, for everyone who's been tuned in tonight from the Nürburgring, this has been the iRacing Radical E-Cup's opening week, and we've thoroughly enjoyed being here. Myself, Ian O'Leary, Ron Mounds alongside, and Ramiro Augustins is now alongside with the cameras as well. If you can't join us at the weekend on Sunday for the European Championship, then make sure you come back this time next week for Road America Racing. Should be a lot of fun. But from all of us here at the Nürburgring, it's goodbye for now.